Welcome to the Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris Katulka, and with me is none other than the Jewish sage himself, the one, the only, Mr. Steve Herzig. How are you, sir? Happy New Year 2026.
Happy New Year to you, Chris. We toasted in the new year.
We toasted it, not me and you together, but we did.
We did. I had my grandkids with me. Look what I got.
Yeah, you got your Zadie shirt on.
I got Zadie with my 6 grandkids on the sleeve.
Look at that.
I'm all ready to go, but Chris, I had problems during New Year's Eve.
Jewish problems?
Well, me personally, no, but because of what I heard and saw, it's kind of Jewish, I gotta admit.
I like where we're going here. Okay, so how was your New Year's? Was it good?
It was very good.
You were up late, weren't you?
I was up very late. The parents came to celebrate one of the Petra's birthday, one of the grandkids' birthday, but they went home, and we, as I think our 5th year in a row, had our grandkids overnight. But during the birthday dinner, I shared an article.
When you have all your grandkids around,
I shared an article.
It's like the Jew and Gentile podcast, but just your family around the dinner table.
I said, I got to tell you about an article that I read, because tonight the ball's going to drop and we want to see it. The grandkids said yes. They made it last year. They made it. And we're going to make it this year. But I didn't know last year what I now read about this year. And that is, according to the New York Post.
Okay, so wait a minute. Let's set the stage here. You're sitting at the head of your table.
I am.
You've got your family with you.
Yeah, they do.
This is the article that you bring up, right?
I didn't bring the article. I didn't do that. But I said I read an article in the New York Post that people who watch the ball drop, because my son, by the way, was up there back when he was in college.
I do remember he went once.
Yes, he did go with my niece. And it wasn't pretty. And in fact, I talked to a lady who works here at Friends of Israel, who when she was in Bible college went up there. She said it was the most horrible experience she ever had in her life.
And a great way to bring in the new year.
And she said, because there's no public bathroom. So the article that I read, and we'll put it in the show notes, won't we, Chris?
Oh, it's in there already. Yep, it's in there.
So we're going to put it in the show notes.
And to do that, you go down. You scroll down.
You got to scroll.
That's right.
And so I told them that the people there are in adult diapers. Adult diapers. There's a whole... Chris, listen to what this...
Can I just... Because I just figured out the title to this. I don't know if you see the whole spiel here, but the number 2 reason you should avoid Times Square insanely crowded ball drop for NYE for New Year's Eve. And then the first sentence is, the number 2 is the number one reason not to go to Times Square insanely crowded ball drop.
They were selling them in the street for $50. $50. Revelers were forced to layer up to 4 Depends adult diapers Wednesday, with peddlers selling pairs for $50 a pop.
This is the grossest thing I've ever heard.
But wait a minute. Then one guy calls it the New York hustle. He says it's the New York hustle. For fun seekers aren't ashamed to put the P in party. I don't want to go any further. Anyway, so I'm telling my grandkids, that's at dinner. So then we watched some movies, and we did Jiffy Pop popcorn. That's, where the popcorn pops and the thing gets real big. Alice had all kinds of snacks. And so now it's 11:45, Chris. And I said, we should see what's going on in New York. So we turned the TV on, and the ball is there. And then the littlest one, who's 8, said, wait a minute, are all those people wearing diapers? I said, this is where I don't want to know. I don't even want to have the discussion about it. I'm just saying that if you go there, there's no public bathroom. What did you tell me about 5,000?
Well, I was wrong there, but I was wrong because I was just looking that up. I exaggerated in my mind.
Oh, we've never done that at the Jew and Gentile podcast.
Never happens here. But I will say, I just looked it up because this is from December 31st, 2024. So not long ago, the New York Times did a piece about Applebee's in Times Square for okay, wait. Applebee's in Times Square for New Year's Eve It's $850 for a table. $850 for a table, and then I think you have to buy your meals maybe after that. But
That's just for the reservation, you're saying?
I think it's just for the reservation, but it's $850 to secure your reservation.
Because they want to use the bathroom.
That's right. So all those half-price appetizers out the window.
Out the window.
That's right.
Well, Chris, anyway, so we toasted it in. We had sparkling grape juice, and then we got in like a huddle. We put our arms on the shoulders of the other person. So I had 3 of my grandkids with me, myself. Alice was long in bed. So there we are huddling. And I said, let's look to the Lord in prayer and pray for a wonderful 2026. We did. They stayed up a little longer. I was like,
That was it.
I said, it's time to go to bed. Let's all go to bed.
You're a good man. You stay up that late. Do they go out and bang pots and pans?
No.
See, our kids do that.
Our neighborhood, though, everybody's blown off, fireworks. and
Oh, are
stuff.
they really?
Oh, yeah, all over the place.
Yeah, see, our kids go out and they bang. Everyone's banging their pots and pans and whatnot. Eventually, you got to say
be
enough.
your neighbor.
No, enough. You got to come in. No, we stayed up till 12 o'clock too, but the kids had a great time and had a great family time. We did Chinese food.
We did that of course, on Christmas.
You did Chinese on Christmas.
Of course, the Jewish thing to do.
Yeah, we did it on New Year's. So that was always fun too. Now, I will say, I don't know what's going on with our Chinese restaurant, but my vegetable lo mein, it lacked the veggies. It was just the lo mein. It was just...
How could you have lo mein with no vegetables?
Well, that's what I opened it up and I said... There's only
noodles?
It was noodles and some broccoli. Like it was almost like they just tossed some broccoli in there. And they never. Usually, it's full of all the good. Those little water chestnuts and the.
They lied.
I said, what is this? It's just the noodles and some sparse broccoli. And I said, Zeigazun, we're moving on.
Well, we at the Jew and Gentile podcast do not lie. We give out stickers for Equip, which sponsors Jew and Gentile podcast, and we asked our listeners to do something special last year, coming into the new year. Chris, give us an update on what happened with the goal that we set, how much did we receive by God's grace?
Yeah, I think starting in late November, we started our campaign, our end of the year campaign, to raise $10,000 to advance the ministry of FOI Equip, to invite people in to get equipped to love the Jewish people to life in the Messiah, Jesus. And I am happy to announce, Steve, that we reached the $10,000 goal. So
Praise God.
Well, I don't know. I don't have a button. The only buttons I have are this. You ready? I have that button. I have this button. Okay, I have this button.
Zeigazun. Live and be well.
I should have.
Okay.
I should have some other buttons.
We gotta have a celebration.
I know. So some clapping or something.
Kunahora. We could say Kunahora.
That's right. A big celebration. Thank you so much for those of you who have participated in supporting FOI Equip and advancing the cause of equipping Christians to love the Jewish people to life. And that's what we're all about here at Friends of Israel. And honestly, we were so excited to see the participation from our listeners and from those who have taken FOI Equip classes and taken some of our courses and gone on some of our programs. So thank you very much. We promise that the funds that were raised are going to go to an amazing cause to continue to advance the work that we're doing. Steve, I see the applications that come in on our forms for our programs. And I'm going to tell you something. Bridges is just blowing up. People are signing up for Bridges from all over the place to get trained. And this is one way and then a couple weeks ago, we had Bruce Scott, who teaches Bridges, which is our training platform, to get trained how to love the Jewish people biblically and to share the hope of Jesus with them. Our Bridges program, we actually filmed it in this room with a nice high...
He finally brought some class to the room.
I'm telling you,
I
Bruce
had this
Scott.
room for the history when it was built, and then you took it and repurposed it for the Jew and Gentile podcast. But brilliantly, I say that respectfully and truly, you decided long range that if you turn the cameras around, the background that we have is great for a teaching video, and Bruce Scott Nailed it.
He nailed it. And so we're going to take the high quality video that we have of Bruce's teachings for Bridges and try to scale what we're doing with Bridges and to invite more people into our training. So again, all that because of the kind donations that were sent for FOI Equip. And we thank you very much and look forward to 2026.
Part of that money is used to buy stickers, Chris.
Big time.
We use that because we've been sending out thousands of stickers. And how do we do that? At 424-444-1948.
Text us.
Yeah, that's right. You got it. And what do they get? A Israel Forever sticker.
And more.
Not one, 50 of them and 4 different kinds.
That's right. And so when you text us at
444-1948,
we're going to send you 50 free stickers that support Israel and the Jewish people. You can share them. You can stick them on your water bottle, your Bible, your hard hat, your back of your car, whatever you want to do. It's a great way to be a witness for God's love, for his chosen people, and ultimately for the hope of Jesus. And so when you text us at 424-1948, I'm going to send you a link. Your message will come right to me. I'm going to send you a link, and that way you'll be able to sign up to get those 50 free stickers. And that's a great way to connect people with not only what's going on in at the Friends of Israel, but what's going on in your own life and how you can share the hope of Jesus. Steve, I actually got a text recently from somebody that out of the blue, okay, never received. I like it when
out of the blue.
I get a text message, and I like it when they come from people who haven't. We have people who text all the time. They're our friends, and we text back and forth.
Of course, you never tell me about them, but at least I come here once a week and I find out stuff.
Well, I told you about this one beforehand.
Oh, you did?
I did. Remember, I just shared with you this one.
Share it again.
All right, so this one person messaged out of the blue and said, I want to say, you ready, Steve? Yep. I want to say that your podcasts have become favorites in my home.
Oh, that's right. You did share that with me.
I just want to make sure that the audience knows.
Yep, that's
true.
Our
7 listeners know that I do care about you. I learn and laugh, and I'm glad that I can go back and listen to the previous talks. Also, she said, I think the dancing in the intro works great.
Ah, that counteracts one of our listeners who said they didn't like the dancing.
So there you go.
There you go.
You can't please everybody.
No, you can't please everybody. I'm glad that they like it and listen. I marvel that they go back and listen to old ones,
I know.
Chris. I'm not saying we've arrived currently.
No.
But I can tell you, I think we're better now than we were long time ago.
Okay, Steve, so we wrapped up 2025 with Psalm 119.
Yes, we did.
That was the most, I don't know if it's just you in retirement, but you were the most patient in going through Psalm 119. Usually I can tell when you start to get a little fidgety about wanting to move on from a book. Like we did Leviticus, you said, we got to get out of this thing, we got to land this plane, or, sometimes you go, we got to land this plane and go on to the next thing. Well, Psalm 119, I feel like you were bathing in it. You were enjoying Psalm 119.
It was good. And I still need to do it again on my own. There's a lot there.
The Word
of God, right in the middle of the Bible, Psalms are in the middle. Then Psalm 119, almost directly in the middle. And what's the center? The Word.
That's right.
The Word. And we as believers can really rejoice that the Word became flesh and dwells among us. And it caused me to think, Chris, about evil and good. And especially, while we were on break, while people were on Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's break, whatever they were doing, lots of terrible things have happened. Just evil being poured out. And is there an answer? How do we answer people who are asking the questions about evil, the source of evil, and how is it dealt with, and how do we respond? In fact, on our Quip course, we know that Joe Zakovich is going to handle loving kindness.
That's right.
Chesed. Boy, that's going to be a good one. That comes next week, I believe, on January 15th.
That's right. Dr. Joe Zakovich is going to come on next week, and you can sign up for that for free on one of our free classes at foiequip.org.
And tell them a little bit about Joe. You were interns together with the Friends of Israel back, what year? Was that 2005?
It must have been. Yeah, it was because I was in Dallas and he came and he actually came. So we were about interns around 2004,
No,
2005.
I had 2 interns then. Two of the best. Boy,
Joe Zakovich.
Joe, both of you.
Dr. Joe Zakovich.
Well, he is now. He went the gauntlet of universities.
Hebrew University.
UCLA to graduated there, then went to Hebrew University, then went to Harvard, and now he's teaching at Master's Seminary.
That's right. And he's going to be looking at, as a Hebrew specialist, he's going to be looking at that word, chesed. In fact, Pastor Neil sent us a beautiful heart that's shaped like a diamond, and it has the word chesed on it, which means loving kindness. So again, if you want to sign up to learn more about this word chesed, loving kindness, which is really where the word grace comes from. If you want to learn about grace, especially in the Old Testament, you're going to want to join Dr. Joe Zakovich's class, just one-time class, January 15th, The Depth of Chesed. And then also in February on the 12th and 19th, we're going to have Should we still bless Israel with Bruce Scott, Ty Perry, and Cameron
we're
Joyner.
having 3 guys who are going to take this on, which is really a significant topic, Chris, because Israel is losing friends all over the place.
Yep.
The world doesn't like Israel, and they're going to talk about why we should bless Israel. Very important.
That's right. And especially with certain names that are out there. And maybe you already know some of these names, like Tucker Carlson, like Candace Owens, but there are others as well, like Joel Webbin. There's certain names that you should be aware of actually people who consider themselves evangelical Christians who are spending more time cursing Israel than blessing Israel. So the question is, should we still bless Israel? Bruce, Ty, and Cameron will handle that February 12th and 19th. You can register for these classes for free by going to foiequip.org. But Steve, you were just talking about how this word, the Psalm 119 is kind of enlightened you to maybe something we're going to talk about today, this idea of evil and good, because like you were seeing those themes coming out in Psalm 119.
The writer of Psalm 119 wanted to follow what the Lord wanted him to follow. He wanted to be obedient. He had enemies all around him. They were threatening to kill him. He felt oppressed, and he was on the Lord's side. So it brings up at least it's a Jewish discussion, Chris. And a Jewish discussion means that you and I could discuss it on the Jew and Gentile podcast.
We got to put our Yiddish kepi on, you know?
We do. And it goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 3. Really, Genesis 1. God created everything. Not everybody believes that. I've watched debates between those who say out of nothing came something. Mm-hmm. So they don't believe in God. They believe a big bang, something happened out of nothing, which to me is just very difficult to believe. But we believe, both Jews and Gentiles believe that the Bible's true, that in the beginning, this is the beginning of time, God always was. We believe God always was. There was never a time there wasn't God. He's the great I am. But in the beginning of time, as God established it, he created everything. And everything he created was good. We've talked about that on this podcast, Chris. But we know that through temptation, fallen angel, the snake, who really isn't a snake at the time, becomes a snake, tempts Eve. Eve eats, gives to Adam, and that's sin comes into the world. What does that mean? In Judaism, there is what's called Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov, the inclination for evil and the inclination for good. And Chris, this is an important doctrine. It even is addressed in the New Testament, not so much with those words, but the same kind of thought.
You know, I've been reading this book by a scholar on purity or ritual and moral impurities and the purity laws of Leviticus and how they were understood during the days of Jesus. It's called Second Temple Judaism, and it's a very fascinating book looking at how the Qumran community interpreted the ritual laws of purity and impurity, and how even the Mishnah handles it. And it's really interesting because this author is dealing with how it's one thing to break a law or to become ritually impure in the book of Leviticus, Steve, but the thing that's really fascinating is that he begins to also say the Bible and also the rabbis dealt with the issue of the intentions of the heart toward those things. And there were some scholars that were saying that really the rabbis weren't dealing so much with the law, but with the intention of the heart. And this guy is writing and saying, actually, no, even God deals with the intention of the heart in the Old Testament, the inclinations of the heart, whether they gear themselves towards the things that are good or towards the things that are evil. So anyway, I thought that was interesting when you were talking about that.
Well, even when God created man, listen what Job says in chapter 32 and verse 8. It says, there is a spirit in a person, in Hebrew, the nehama, the breath of the Almighty that gives them understanding. That's an interest. Or what does it mean that God breathed into man the breath of life? What does God breathing into man, when he breathed into Adam, did that breath that he breathed life into him remain even after the fall? And if that breath was holy, because God is holy, how does that play into man being fallen? A verse we use all the time at Friends of Israel, I know you use it as well. The prophet Jeremiah says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I was listening to Dennis Prager, who has written 5 volumes, 1 volume each on Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. He knows the Hebrew. He has written extensively on the law and Judaism. And he says, I have Christian friends who argue with me that they believe in original sin, and they believe the only way is, of course, through Jesus, but they believe that works will not get you in. He said, I don't know if I'm going to get in, but works is the only way to do it. Chris, that's a really interesting discussion. And one, look, we at Friends of Israel, we're believers in the Lord Jesus. We believe he's the way, the truth, and the life. But what do we say to a Jewish person who's saying, I want to be judged on the basis of what I do? Talk is cheap. What do you do? How do we deal with that? And, in Romans chapter 7, Paul talks about a struggle that he has. So this inclination to do good, an inclination to do bad. There's lots of people who do bad. We try to highlight people who do good. How does this all play out?
And just so that if you're listening, going, is Steve and Chris saying that you can only get to heaven by the works that you do? That's not what we're saying.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
we're on the other side.
That's right. By grace through faith, as the Apostle Paul teaches. But at the same time, we want to have this deep conversation about what does it mean? Because this is what you and I talked about before we started the podcast. What does it mean that God breathed his breath into Adam? And Adam was a real person, but he also is the father of mankind. That's why we're all called Ben. In Hebrew, Ben Adam means humans, but in actual transliteration, it's son of man. So all of us, Steve's the son of Adam, I'm a son of Adam, whether you're a woman or a man, you're all sons of Adam. Your humanity as it comes across, and you see that all throughout the Hebrew scriptures. And so what does it mean to be a son of Adam? And how does that play out? And what does it mean that God breathed his life into Adam? What did that make? Because he stood there lifeless. When God formed Adam, he formed him from the
dust of the earth.
And he didn't take on his personality. He didn't become who he was intended to be until God breathed in him. And what did he breathe into him? That's a bit, because if we're created in the image of God, Steve, I read in the past a book called The Bodies of God by a Hebrew scholar named Benjamin Summers. Great book, amazing book. And he argues, as a conservative Jew, that to be made in the image of God means, sometimes we think of that in a very ethereal way. You know, God's image, his likeness is in us. But he argues that even the makeup that we have almost is the image of who God is, like the actual physical makeup. But then also when God breathed his life into us, we take on that image of who he is as well. He leaves that in us. And I think that's kind of the discussion that we're having as we talk about the good and the evil inclinations that were being dealt with in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, and also in a lot of what the rabbis were teaching as well.
Well, we know that Adam was good. He was innocent. He was without sin. He was pure. We talk about that. But then in chapter 5, Chris, and I've discussed this with young people through the years. Well, what does it mean to have the image of God? We all talk about, well, we're made in the image of God. I've heard some rabbis say, well, that's right. The Yetzer Hara is good and bad at the same time, because the Yetzer Hara, that which is evil, is the motivator for us to be parents, to go out and build and grow and live. It's a motivator for us. Well, I'm not sure about that, but here's what I am sure of. In Genesis chapter 5 and verse 3, after Adam fell, it says Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness after his image. Chris, something changed.
It's the same theme from Genesis chapter 2 being worked into Genesis chapter 3 or 5.
Only the image of God, which is a permanent mark, I believe. I believe you can see God's image in every living human being. That's what he gave us. But it changed in the garden. And now mixed up with that is the image of the Father, Adam, not the pure Adam without sin, but the fallen Adam and Eve, who has Seth. And now each of us, you know what, Chris? I always tell people, hey, you know whose fault it is that you're a sinner? Your parents. You can have every right. Blame your parents. They're blamed for it's my parents' fault. They gave me sin. And they could look at me and say, you're right, we gave it to you. But somebody gave it to us. Your grandparents. And it's true. You are allowed to do that. It's not my fault. It's true. It's not your fault. We're all stuck with it.
You know, Steve, a good friend of mine years ago, who's much older, his kids are all grown up, and he and I were talking. He said, Chris, I know you're thinking you got young kids, and one day they're going to go to college and all this stuff. He goes, you don't want to save up for college. You want to save up for counseling, because at some point they're going to blame you for everything.
That's true. It's true. It's true. We live in a culture that passes on the blame for everything. But when it comes to this is where we have to reconcile. And by the way, I dealt with this growing up, the idea of sin and how do we deal with it. The answer in Judaism is a quite healthy one, Chris. At least once a year, Judaism focuses on what kind of year did you have? Did you treat people unkindly? We talked about that when we did the book of Leviticus, when we talked about the feast of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. God spoke about that. There's a whole system of blood sacrifice for the high priest and then for the whole nation. There is blame, but we can't center on the blame because we all have the same problem. How do we deal with it? What is the answer to it? And the first part of the answer is we have it. We all are sinners. Now, does good works of a sinner enough to satisfy a holy God? There's no evidence of that in the scriptures. There's not. Good works are encouraged. If we have the 10 Commandments. Talk about works. You're supposed to do good things. But the law teaches us that no matter how many good things we do, we fall short of holiness. And
Jeremiah gives us the picture of the deceitful heart, while Isaiah gives us the image of the works that we do, even the good works that Israel did. Not just the humanity, but Israel, God's chosen people. Even the good works that they do are considered like menstrual rags. That's what they are.
Oh, that verse, Isaiah 64, you're talking about. I think it's verse 6. All our righteousnesses. Chris, when I first came as a volunteer with Friends of Israel, Alice and I would go, and she was a volunteer. That's where we met. We'd go on the boardwalk and ask old people. Now I'm one of them, but we asked old people, hey, how are you? You know, it's beautiful. It's June, July, August on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. This is before the gambling came. People were retired. Oh, I'm happy to talk to you. Oh, yeah, how are you doing? What's new? My grandkids, this, that. And then we begin to talk about deep things. And I'd say, all our righteousnesses are as filthy rags. Mm-hmm. And they said, what? I mean, every good work you do in God's eyes doesn't mean anything. And they didn't like that.
And that's what that word, right, in the Hebrew there, in that context, the righteousnesses are actually not like your position in God's. It's actually the right things you do. Even the right things you do to God, they're get this thing away from me. The idea of a menstrual rag, a dirty rag like that as it comes across, is something
disgusting.
It's not even disgusting. A woman wouldn't even be allowed near the tent. Like, you couldn't even come near. You were supposed to stay away. You were ritually unclean. So stay away until you're clean. And God's saying even the right things you do are wrong.
Exactly. But isn't it interesting that placed in the prophet's book, Isaiah, is a passage that really gripped me as it does so many. Mostly every Jewish believer that at least I know came to Christ through Isaiah 53. And it describes good news. There's a person who comes who takes all those iniquities away. But it's still, Chris, the question is, the Apostle Paul struggled with that when he wrote his letter to the church at Rome. He said something that more eloquently, I thought it, not in those exact words, but I knew the frustration, and still do know the frustration he felt in Romans chapter 7. He says, that which I do, I shouldn't do. And that which I don't do, I should do. Chris, that is the Yetzer Hara, the inclination for evil, and the inclination for good. And we believe the only motivation for good is through the Spirit of God who indwells us. But nonetheless, they're clashing against each other. There's frustration there. So what does he come up with after he says that? Oh, wicked, wretched, awful man that I am. Who could help me?
Mm-hmm. And only Jesus Christ can do that. Jesus the Messiah, God himself.
100%.
Can we talk about, because you and I have, when we were talking about this idea of God breathing his breath.
Yep.
Like the contents of that's always a bit, we always just assume God breathed his spirit. But what was the contents? And, this is a conversation you and I were having, because I never thought about this before. The contents of the Spirit as God breathed into Adam.
Well, isn't the Spirit of God the Word? Isn't God, remember, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then when you drop down in chapter 1 of John, then the Word became flesh. Well, he wasn't flesh back in Genesis. The Godhead, three persons within one Godhead, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So if God breathed into Adam the breath of life, didn't he breathe? I'm asking the question, did he breathe the Word? There was no Bible. Did he breathe his Word, his living Word, into Adam?
Did he breathe the Torah into Adam? That's the question.
That's the question.
That when you said that blew my mind. That he would breathe the Torah into Adam made me really think, because Adam lived a sinless life with God before he fell. He lived what it was that made him created that separation between God and Adam was his disobedience to God's commands.
Yep.
Which is exactly that. It's the same thing that Psalm 119 had talked about. I love your law. I want to follow your law. But there are people who are breaking your law, breaking your commands. And so the theme of, the idea of breaking a command goes back to Adam and Eve breaking the command that God had given them not to eat from that tree. But before that moment, when Adam and Eve were living in a perfect harmony with God, and were being blessed by God in the garden was the breath that he breathed in him, the Torah. Was it the commands of God being lived out as Adam and Eve walked innocently in the garden? That is such a fascinating conversation.
It is, and it also, if it is that which we are talking about, then what happened with him disobeying, Eve being the first, but Adam right next to her and disobeying, that meant even though the Torah was in him, he wasn't a robot. He chose to sin. I mean, he, in spite of, yes, not only the garden, but the unique relationship externally, face to face, and as we discuss it internally, his heart wasn't deceitful at that time, but it became deceitful with his disobedience to the word that God gave him. It's something, Chris, we don't have the answer. I don't think we have the answer. I know I keep asking more questions than getting an answer. For most of us, let's be honest, Chris, we're broadcasting now. We're doing this podcast a week into January. So there's some of our 7 listeners started to read day 1 on January. So they're already past this, but it's relatively fresh in Genesis. We start to read the Bible, and where do you start? You start in Genesis. Not everybody does. There's different ways to go about reading the Bible in a year, but many people just start in Genesis. And Chris, it's an interesting thing. We read very quickly. Oh, yeah, I know the story. In the beginning, Adam sinned, and as a result of sin comes into the world. Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel, and on we go. But that decision, with the resources that Adam had at that time, he walked with God, Chris. We can walk with God. We're encouraged to walk with God. That's what Psalm 119 is all about. Reading His Word, memorizing His Word, letting it fill our hearts and lives. But it's still different than what Adam had in the garden. And what struggle, what things went on during that time, and the change that came about is...
Well, because even when after Adam and Eve sinned, there's still the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara.
Exactly.
There's still the evil inclination. There's still the good inclination. And even the Apostle Paul talks about this, because if there's anybody with the revelation of God about what's right and wrong, it's the Jewish people, because they received the revelation from God. But then even the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 2 says, "For it is not those who hear the law," verse 13, "who are righteous in God's sight, but those who obey the law, and who will be declared righteous. Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law, they didn't even have the law, do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them, that at other times are even defending them." What that Paul's talking about, the Jewish people received the revelation of what is right and what is wrong. Gentiles didn't have that revelation, but still live it out. Well, where does that innately come from, that they're able to live it out? And we're going back now to Adam when God breathes his life into him, breathes his breath into him. But what is it that Paul's talking about? He's saying, well, even these Gentiles are fulfilling aspects of the law. They have a conscience. They sometimes know what's right and they sometimes know what's wrong, and they can even defend it in their conscience. But how is that possible? Are those the remnants of the Torah that was implanted in mankind? Because it wasn't implanted in just Jewish people. It was implanted in Adam, the son of man, the one who's the spring of mankind. Okay, Adam. Does that mean that all mankind have remnants of instruction from God because we're created in His image? Do we have those remnants in us, which gives Paul the ability to say, look at even Gentiles who've never even spent a day in the Torah are living out aspects of Torah.
Well, you know, I used to have discussions back when I was in Chicago and had a Bible study, and there were a lot of Jewish, Gentiles, and Christians in that study. And we talk about these things, and I'd get arguments, good ones, from Jewish people who say, wait a minute, you're saying we can't do anything good. Well, no, I'm not saying... There's some people who say, oh, there's no good in me, nothing I do, all my righteousnesses, all my right deeds are evil. That's true. But Chris, I use this all the time. If you're stuck, you got a flat tire. And by the way, a lot of new cars now, they don't even have a spare tire. They got a little kit in there that you shoot stuff in. I'm not kidding. Probably half the new cars have no spare tire. It's a big thing in automotive news. But I digress.
You're not going to get that. Hey, just for our 7 listeners, where else are you going to get spare tire news and a good Bible study at the same time?
So, Chris, if you're stuck on the highway and somebody stops to help you, you don't ask if they're Christian. You don't ask, oh, are you following the Spirit of God? If somebody stops and they're not a Christian, that's a good deed.
Yep.
It's a good deed. It's not. I think it's a good deed from a cultural point of view, and it's certainly a good deed from an individual point. You're thankful. I'll pay you. I'll do. No, I'm happy to do it. People stop by the wayside. But if that person thinks that, even if it's their motivation, I'm going to stop because this is a mitzvah and it will get me into heaven, well, it will help that person. And it is a good deed. And I think it will even be remembered by God.
Well, it says when we stand before God.
But it won't be enough.
100%.
There's never enough. That's why when I heard Dennis Prager speak, and he talked about this difference that he has with his evangelical friends, where and it's an interesting one. He says, yes, it is good works, but I don't know if I'm going to get in. Mm-hmm. That's, by the way, every Yom Kippur, every Jewish person who celebrates Yom Kippur, who beats their heart, as I did, for the sins which I have sinned before you, repenting and saying, I have sinned, and hoping that their mitzvahs will outdo their bad deeds. At the end of the day, they don't know. Mm-hmm. Is it enough? They don't know. And yet, in the Bible, it tells us they're not enough. Mm-hmm. No amount that you do is enough, because the Yetzer Hara is permanent. Mm-hmm. The only one who can deal with that doesn't mean it stops. He paid the price of it.
Seth was made in the image of Adam.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because Jesus becomes the second Adam. And that's where we get that's where we're born again.
Chris, if you understand Genesis and understand what took place there and read that whole book, you have the basis of all, not just Jewish theology, Christian theology as well.
Isn't it interesting too? This is something I still wrestle with. Is the new covenant? How can I put this? I wrestle with Jeremiah 31 because I think when we think about the new covenant, we don't think about, again, when we're talking about God breathing his life into Adam. We just think about this breath, this spirit going into Adam, bringing in the life. But boy, we're bringing some. If we're saying this could be the very commands of God too, the Torah of God that's going into him. That's amazing to think about, but those are the contents as well. Like there's something that's going to bring him to life and allow him to live in harmony with God in the Garden of Eden. In the new covenant, it sounds like the new covenant's just this thing that's designed to get rid of the old thing. Get this old thing out of here. Let's bring in this new thing. What is the new thing? And it's funny because it never really gives us. Jeremiah 31 says we're going to have this new covenant, but it's going to be not written on tablets, but it's going to be placed in your heart.
In your heart.
So once again, what are the contents though? The contents is God's his Torah. It's embedded. It's no longer just on tablets for you to stare at. Now this thing is in you. It's almost like it was intended to be here so that you could walk in the paths and fulfill the will of God in your life. All of these things. So anyway, those are that's some stuff I've been thinking about with Jeremiah 31 and what it means to be a new covenant believer in Jesus, and what was in the new covenant, because we know what was in the old covenant. We have an entire 5 books about it, but what about the new what was in the new covenant? And it sounds more like Paul or Jeremiah saying, I'm going to take what God's revelation is and not put it on tablets because you didn't follow those. I'm going to take these things and I'm going to write them on your heart. That's it's where it's placed that's the most important.
And I think it's important, Chris, we now know that God breathed into man. Adam then had Seth, and it says in his image. And even if it is the Torah that was breathed in, man didn't do too well with it.
No.
Because it ended up that God wiped everybody off the planet except one family.
That's right.
And that one family was considered righteous before God.
Following the commands.
So even if as we understand it, this Torah, this breath of God put into Adam, everybody seemed to have access to it, but the deeds or the heart, which is so evil, just took over not 98.9% or 99% of man because God wiped them all out. But there was a remnant of his breath in man. Then it would be played out through Noah and his family.
Yeah, it's just interesting how it opens with Noah. It says Noah was a righteous man, tzedak, blameless among the people of his time.
Tzaddik, a great tzaddik.
And he walked faithfully with God. Halacha. I mean, to walk with God is to fulfill the law of God.
Exactly.
Zygazun. Steve, that was great. I'm so glad that you brought that as a way to begin the year. And I think Romans chapter 7 is a great way for us to think about the new year as well, Steve, when you're talking about this wrestling in our spirit between the things that we want to do but we don't do and the things that we shouldn't do but we do. Oh, wretched man or woman, doesn't matter, man or woman. I think that's a great place for to humbly come before the Lord and to say, Lord, thank you for saving us. Thank you for delivering us. Thank you for giving us the confidence to know that we can have a relationship with you that's a permanent, we talk about a permanent relationship with you because of your indwelling Holy Spirit and because of the forgiveness that we receive from Jesus Christ, because of his faithfulness and obedience to you. So, Steve, great way to start the year.
I think so too, Chris. And now we're going to the news.
Let's go. What do we got?
My old stomping ground, Chris. I'm from Ohio. I'm a Buckeye, a worthless nut. And I could tell you that the headline in the Jerusalem Post was Michelle Weiss and Justice Brash mark milestones as first Orthodox Jewish mayors in their cities. I lived in University Heights, Ohio. I know exactly where that is. It's when I used to go visit my mom. My sister still lives just next door to University Heights. They elected a Jewish mayor, Orthodox Jewish mayor, and Justin Brash is a Orthodox Jewish mayor. And Chris, that just encourages me. It just I think it's fantastic. Do you have any comments about that?
The question, number one, that means that the Jewish community moves, Steve. It moves around and it builds communities, especially the Orthodox Jewish community. And so,
look at those Jewish punums.
That's right.
We're going to include that in the show notes, aren't we?
That's right. That's going there. But I mean, I also know that right now the Orthodox Jewish community of Brooklyn is moving out into the areas, I think, of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and developing communities out there because you know why? It's too expensive to live in New York City. So,
I know people get upset when the people of New York, just like in California, move to regions where the property prices are less. They all go up, and it becomes hard for that local community because they're bringing New York money into a new area. Not good.
And then I had a pastor reach out to me a couple of years ago that said, Chris, we finally, as a church, we need to do something about getting trained to love the Jewish people, because I live in Lakewood, New Jersey, and our church is in Lakewood, New Jersey.
Yep.
And we can't ignore it anymore. We can't ignore it.
No, you can't. You
That's
can't.
a very Orthodox Jewish community.
Listen what it says here. It says, while Orthodox mayors have been elected in cities and suburbs across the country, including New Jersey, New York State, and Florida, the inaugurations of Michelle Weiss in University Heights, Ohio, and Justin Brash in White Plains, New York this week marked a milestone for Orthodox representation in local politics. In November, Belle Harbor, Florida also swore in an Orthodox Jewish mayor, Seth Salver. Well, say that 3 times fast. I'm glad for Seth, making him the 3rd Orthodox mayor currently serving in a municipality of Miami-Dade.
Amazing.
We're all over the place, Chris. We're everything. We're everybody. Look at those 2 guys.
We're everybody. I love it. All right, Steve, you got another one, because you have this article, but Mike Huckabee's son or grandkids are floating around, digging around in Israel, and bada bing.
Chris, how many times have you been to Israel?
20 plus times.
Okay, I've been there even more than you, and a lot of times. And how many times have you gotten in the dirt in a cave, outside of a cave? You're sifting dirt. You're looking for something. I mean, Israel, the land of archaeology. haven't you sifted dirt?
I've done the sifting, yes.
Okay, you actually found something.
I found like an old Byzantine coin or something like that from 1000 AD.
And what happened when you showed the guy or gal?
I'm not gonna lie. They find so many of those little Byzantine coins that they look over and
they look at it and say,
they go, look good for you, buddy. And that's it.
Have a good day.
That's right. It means bupkis.
Thanks. Well, Mike Huckabee, who we've had on the Jew and Gentile podcast.
A good friend.
Knows us well.
That's right.
Anyway, Mike Huckabee had his family in Israel because he lives there now as the ambassador, and his grandkids were in a cave containing fragments of a jar dating back to the 2nd century, provided evidence that the cave served as a hiding place for refugees during the Bar Kokhba revolt. And what did they find? Coins, Chris.
Of course.
They found, Grandpa, look what we found. I found bupkis. I found nothing.
Can I see that really? Does it say where they were? Does it say exactly where they were when they found these? They were in Modin. They were coins and jars fragments about 10 kilometers northeast of Modin.
We've been to Modin. That's Hanukkah. That's the central place for Hanukkah. I've been there. We've opened the Bible in Modin. We've walked around all kinds of places in Modin. And what did I find? Buckets. Look there's a picture of them.
This is amazing. These findings are the best proof of our historical right to every part of the land of Israel, and that was said by Mateh Benjamin Regional Council head Israel Gantz. Said that these coins confirm are a confirmation of the Jewish people's presence in Israel, and who found them? Goyim.
Of course. Look,
Gentile.
I find nothing. They find everything.
All right, Steve, I got another good one. I got some gold for you here, too, Steve, okay?
Good gold.
I had to do a radio interview yesterday with a good friend, Sam Rohr, who's head of the American Pastors Association and network there. He's a former legislator for Pennsylvania, and I was giving him an update on what was going on with the peace plan, the 20-point peace plan, which you and I are going to do a little special on in the coming days. But I ran across this article that really took me by surprise. Okay, when I read this, I had to do a double take, but it's coming from the Jerusalem Post. Okay, the article is Iranians, which there's a lot going on in Iran right now. Iranians have fallen in love. You ready, Steve? With Netanyahu. That's right, Benjamin Netanyahu. Tehran's residents tell Khan reporting. An Israeli protester told Khan's Reshet Bet, that's a news station in Israel, that many Iranians admire Netanyahu and Israeli strikes while blaming economic collapse, repression, and inflation on the unrest. It actually says that their love or their admiration for Netanyahu is beyond that. The Iranian people have fallen in love with him. People actually don't trust America. Iranians don't trust America or the president, but they have very much believe in and love Israelis. And the reason that they don't trust the Americans is they're scared of what they kind of see what happened in Iraq and how they came in and how they try to do nation building and all that. And they said, we don't want that here. And so they look at kind of our past and say, no, thank you. But they look at Israel and they say, thumbs up to Benjamin Netanyahu.
So there's actually some Iranians who like Netanyahu who better than some Israelis.
That's right. Yeah, I was gonna say, you go to Israel and you know what I hear all this. Have you been, anti-Zionism is this hatred for Israel. People, when you say anti-Zionism, you actually believe Israel shouldn't exist. Okay. And a lot of times I'm hearing this come from people all the time. Hey, I can be anti-Zionist. I can criticize Israel. Of course you can criticize this. Israelis spend all their days criticizing their country. It's not criticism to be anti-Zionist. That belief, you can criticize America, but it's the belief, anti-Zionism is the belief that Israel shouldn't even exist. The very idea of a Jewish presence in the land is absolutely wrong. So that's you can criticize Israel all you want. You can disagree with the war. You can agree with this. You can disagree. Sei gesund. That's what they do in Israel all day long. Anti-Zionism is actually the belief that Jewish people shouldn't even be in the land. That's a totally different idea. But Iranians, it seems like many of them,
they love them.
Bada bing, bada boom. Hey, everybody, Yiddish word of the day. Yiddish word of the day. Steve, what do we got here?
Our Yiddish word of the day is Beyz.
Beyz.
Beyz. B-E-Y-Z. Bad, evil, wicked.
Okay.
And we've been talking about the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. The Yiddish word is Beyz, or B-E-Y-Z.
Steve, I'm sitting around looking, because we had some playing cards with the Yetzer Hara, the guy. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Oh, you do? All right. Well, after the show, I'll find them and we'll bring them back out. Maybe show them next week. That's right. Yetzer Hara. So, but the Yiddish word of the day is Beyz, which means bad, evil, and wicked. Hey, let's not hope for a Beyz 2026. We need a Tov. We need a Tov Meod 2026. And that's what we're hoping for everybody as you start your new Bible reading.
Get your stickers.
Get your stickers. You can get that at 424-444-1948. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for being a part of the Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. Hey, we're back, baby. It's 2026. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. In fact, 2026 is the start of the year. You think, hey, we're going to ease into this thing. Nope. We come right into a lot of news and things that are happening with Israel and the Jewish people globally and also biblically. So stick with us this year in 2026. Also, don't forget to sign up for our classes, foiequip.org. You can get Joe Zakovich, Dr. Joe Zakovich's class all about grace, chesed, loving kindness. Join us, foiequip.org. Hey, you know what? We'll see you next week.